including the Lehigh Valley. So we finally now have people moving back into the cities, into new developments. But some would argue that these developments are actually displacing residents to other places. How do we get people back from the suburbs into the cities in a productive, vital, manner?
Thank you for inviting me. That is a question, right? How do you get folk? I mean, I think there are people that are arguably coming to the city. I mean, there's people here on the weekend, there's definitely activity. I think coming to the city and belonging to the city are two different things. I think coming to the city for a hockey game, or a concert, or a steak, is very different than belonging to the city and living here, where you are deeply entrenched and connected to the soul of the city, both from your biology, your economy, and also from an ecological perspective. The city really is like a rainforest, not a greenhouse. So if you start shifting things around, what privilege does? Privilege allows a person to act in autonomy without regard for others. So, for example, this room does not look like the Lehigh Valley, nor does it look like the city of Allentown. That's privilege, does that. Now, if we can at least have that honest conversation, we can talk about how do we build neighborhood and community. I understand the speaker this morning. I'm sorry I had to miss her. I heard she was phenomenal, but one of the things that I think I heard folks say that she said, which I absolutely subscribe to, was, there is an interconnection or an intersectionality of all things. And if you don't prescribe to that, you will consistently be living around these binaries of economic development versus community, development versus, I always ask the question, what does it mean to be human when we make decisions? Who's in the room? Who's at the table? If we do a plan, who writes the plan? When we use terms like neighborhood improvement zone, what do we mean by neighborhood? Whose neighborhood? What do we mean by improvement? Because improvement for you might look different than improvement for me, right? So one of the things I think is if we're going to really create an equitable city, we've got to be willing to have some conversations that can be very difficult. Moving folk back into the city and not addressing the folk that are in the city is going to be, that's going to be a problem. I mean, it doesn't make a difference what side of the aisle you're on. That's going to be a problem, right? So the intelligence that's needed to really build a different kind of Allentown are folk that understand how to build relationship, folk that understand that community is very broad. There's got to be folk that understand what does it mean for us to be connected to one another and maybe not look like each other. I mean, I appreciate the fact that someone called me Reverend and I pastor a church, but there's a business aspect of church. I mean, we're on 9th and Turner. The last church that was there packed up and moved. Now, we've been there for 5 years and we've got a school, an academy, a freedom school, community organizing, we employ 25 people. What's the difference? The difference is that the current context at 9th and Turner is being operationalized by people who are not afraid of people, nor afraid to embrace the historic person who is considered the other or different. So I think it's fine for people to move back, but on a very pragmatic perspective, I don't know if somebody's going to move back because the heart of the city has changed, that this is the heart, we're considering this the heart, and the limbs are dead. So if the heart is vibrant, but we have an educationally oppressive environment, the Allentown School District, the elephant in the room, I don't know if anybody would be really willing to move back into and put your children where? Where would they go? What school are they going to go to? So and that's not about blame. That's really about looking at, well, if we're going to create an economic heart, what do we do with the head? Because a functional heart without an operative head still is a flat line premise.
That's a drop the mic hashtag.